on our Qt Creator, which is a very powerful tool. Probably the, I would say, the best C++ integrated development environment on Ubuntu, and Genie, which I use for pretty much everything else. And there's a real particular reason why I actually like both of these. For one, Qt Creator is part of the Ubuntu SDK. So if you search Ubuntu SDK, you will actually, it's interesting, they actually just changed your icon here. It used to be the old Qt Creator. The Ubuntu SDK does include Qt Creator, so as you can see right there. And if we just run this, and there we go. It starts up quite quickly. It's a very, very powerful integrated development environment, and I use it for every project, for anything from C++ to Qt, and I'm a little bit surprised. It actually has a little bit of Python in here right now, so I'm going to have to actually take a look at that, because that's very interesting. I didn't realize that they had Python support. But otherwise, what I actually usually use, other than that, is Genie. Now, as you can see here, I actually also have a mono development window open, but this is actually kind of a joke, and we'll get into that in the next part. So the reason why mono develop is a bit of a joke is because the only reason why I downloaded it is to show what a improperly integrated program on Ubuntu looks like. So the first thing that you will notice on mono develop as it compares to Genie here is that this menu bar is situated right under the title bar, whereas in Genie the menu bar is situated up here. Now, this is important for two reasons. The first reason is because in the age of 16 by 9 widescreen laptop screens, televisions, computer screens, what have you, vertical space has become much more important. And this is probably the reason why the team at Canonical, when they were designing Unity, chose to put their start bar on the side here. Because you need to have a lot more space, vertical space, especially if you're editing documents, than you used to with the older computers. This is especially relevant if you're editing photos on something like GIMP. You see how much real estate I have here, right? If this was Windows, I might have the title bar down here. I might have another title bar up here, and I'm sure they would have a bunch of useless widgets in here too. And I'd really lose a lot of my ability to edit the photo with ease or what have you. Again, every pixel counts. The second reason, and this is the main reason why I recommend Ubuntu as a developer's platform, is because when you have the menu command down here, this is actually an indicator that this is not integrated into the HUD. And the HUD is an extremely powerful, how should I say this? It improves your workflow by leaps and bounds once you start getting used to it, right? And what the HUD is, if you look over here, whenever I press Alt, I can actually search through the menu commands here, and then I can just execute them, right? So I know what some people are probably saying. They're probably saying, well, that's why we have keyboard shortcuts. Well, let's go through that. Let's try to open up a new file. So let me try to use the keyboard shortcut. So that's probably Control-N. That's just what I'm assuming. I don't know. Okay, so I was right. So you're right. A keyboard shortcut does exist. I don't need to go like this. I could do that, but it's not necessary in that case. And I was able to guess it. However, let's start actually writing a program here. So let's write an extremely complicated Python program. A classic. Well, as you can see here, there's no syntax highlighting applied here. So if I want to enable syntax highlighting, well, let's let's try to see if there is a keyboard shortcut for that. So because this is a Python program, I would want Python syntax highlighting, so let's try Control P. Nope. Control Alt P. Nope. Control Shift P. Nope. Control Alt Shift P. Nope. Control. How was it? Control Super P. Nope. Control Alt P. Nope. Nothing's working. So ordinarily on another distribution, I can't find the shortcut key. Probably one doesn't even exist because all the shortcut keys have to actually be programmed in. And there's just so many different programming languages out there that, why bother? So normally I would actually have to search through this, and I would actually have to find the syntax highlighting mini command here. So because I've been through this a few times before, I actually know where to look. It's actually under Document, Set File Type. Is it under Programming Languages? No. Is it under Scripting Languages? Yep, there it is. So that says Python source file, and I can click that, and voila, it works. No? Fantastic. But again, for someone who's just getting used to Genie, who's never used a program before, how are they supposed to know that? And frankly, it's still, that's still quite a few extra steps to go to actually go through this and choose Python, right? You have to go through 3 different menus, and you have to search through all of them until you find the right choice. Whereas if I merely did this, let's print hello world again. On Ubuntu, all I need to do is go Alt, and well, I want syntax highlighting, so I want it for Python, so maybe I'll type Python, see where that gets me. Oh, look at that. Python source file, document, set file type, scripting languages. That's exactly what I want. Enter. Now, that is a lot easier than going through the many commands. And once you really get used to that, that extremely improves your workflow. Let me give you a better example. Let's go to the GIMP here. So the GIMP is a program that is notorious for just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of menu commands here. Or probably at least 200 or something like that. I shouldn't say hundreds and hundreds, but 200. That's probably a fair guesstimate. So there's just no way. And if you actually look at all of these, there's not even there's not even shortcuts for like a lot of these, especially in filters, right? So and it doesn't just go down to many commands. It actually applies to things such as one of my favorite features, opening up recent documents. Well, in GIMP, there's no real intuitive shortcut key for opening up recent documents. You can go Control 1. Okay, so Control 1, but that doesn't really say like this document is called example.xcf. That doesn't. Control 1 has no connection to the file example.xcf, and it might not even be the one I'm actually looking for. So let's just close that. Control C. No. Control. Of course, it would be Control C. Control W. Okay, Control W. That closed it. So if I actually really wanted to open it, I could just go Alt, and I wouldn't have to go Open Recent, as that really wouldn't work. I mean, that would work in this case. But what I could actually just do is I could just type the file name. So in this case, I made an example. I could just type exa, press enter, and there you go. Now let's say I want to do some really beautiful work on this. I want to oilify this. All right, let's give it another try. So let's try the keyboard shortcut first. Is it Control O? No, Control O is open. Is it Control A, Alt O? Control Alt O, Alt O is also open. Control Super O, Super Alt O, Super. Ugh. None of these are working. So again, what I would have to do on another operating system, such as KDE or GNOME or XFCE, is I would have to go here. I have to go Tools, Filters. I have to go through all of these. Where is Oilify? Is that under here? No, just so many different files here. There's so many different options here that I really am having a hard time finding it. And when in reality, on Ubuntu, on using the HUD, I could just go like this. There we go. That is an incredible time saver. And people really, really do not give Unity credit for how powerful that tool is. So, yeah. So I want to end the video off in giving some advice to Linux users who have been wanting to take the plunge into programming, but have never actually really gone over that hump. It's a difficult hump to get over. And if anyone's familiar with the Linux Action Show, or with Jupiter Broadcasting, the owner of that podcast, Chris Fisher, I remember listening to him on Coder Radio one time, and he was lamenting that he thinks that some people just have the programming gene and other people don't. Like, some people just have the mind it takes to program, and a person like him will just never be able to attain that because, for whatever reason, the most he will ever be able to accomplish is that he might be able to do a few bash scripts or something like that. I'd like to say that I think he's wrong. I think it's just such a fantastic hurdle to get over, especially if you're self-taught. I was self-taught. Such a fantastic hurdle to get over. But once you do that, you can start stepping into it. And I can certainly say that if you start with C++, you're going to give up. If you start with Python now, I think that's very pragmatic, a lot of fun. So as you can actually see here, I have the Python challenge here. One thing that I would advise, and this is actually something I'm doing right now, I recently repicked up Python, and I'm going to actually try to get through all 33 levels of the Python challenge. The Python challenge is a bunch of riddles that you're supposed to use Python to solve. And I've had a few attempts at this before. I think I got to level 4 back in like 2011. I remember everything that I learned from there really stuck with me, and it was just so much fun, but I can never really keep at it because you just lose interest so far. This time I've actually gone up to level 8, and I'll share with you my secret. And I think a lot of people would really benefit from this. This would really help you get into programming. It makes it a lot of fun. The thing that you want to do is you want to go to IRC, and you want to get a bunch of people together who also want to do the Python challenge. So you might want to go to /join. There we go. Nope. What am I doing? Learn Python. There we go. So learn Python. If you go in here and you ask a bunch of people around here and say, hey, does anyone want to do the Python challenge with me? I'm sure you're going to get quite a few people who will want to join you. And yeah, and one thing that I would suggest that you can do with that is that you can actually use a collaborative terminal here, where you actually can, just like in Google Docs, how you can edit a document at the same time, you can actually do that with code here too. So codebunk.com. Going through Python again, I've greatly expanded my knowledge on Python and my experience of programming, and I really just recommend that. I was already, a programmer before this. Again, like, there's so much that you can learn from that. So that's my first piece of advice. My second piece of advice is, well, I think you should download the Ubuntu SDK, because the Ubuntu SDK is really what you need as a base. Like, this is really good industry standard. If you know how to develop in C++, and you know how to develop a GUI front end using Qt, which is extremely powerful, probably the best GUI front end out there, period, bar none, you're pretty much set up. You'll probably be able to find a job anywhere. So now, I can tell you from experience, getting into Qt and getting into C++ is a lot harder than getting into Python. Python is much better to start with. C++, I've had people tell me that they use C++, but they use C++, but they think that it should die. And in many cases, I actually kind of agree with him because, oh man, I guess to put it in a little bit of perspective, the developer of C++, he said when commenting on C, because C++ is an extension of C, C++ is basically C with classes, so C object-oriented programming. He said, in C, it used to be very easy to shoot yourself in the foot. In C++, it's more difficult. But when you shoot yourself in the foot, you blow your entire leg off. And that's very true. It's sort of like painting yourself in the corner. You can do that in C++, and if you structure your program wrong or you mess up something, you're just going to bang your head against the wall, and it's just going to be really annoying. You've shot your entire leg off. You just do not know. It's frustrating. So, that being said, C++ is one of those languages that if you learn it, you're going to get really good at programming. Now, my third piece of advice is, actually, I should just demo Qt for a second here. So this is a program that I made. I'll just show you the power of this GUI interface. Look at that. I can dock it here, I can tab it, I can close it, I can go to here, I can open it again. Just fantastic. Start a 2-player game. Missing, there we go, stack. Oh look, buy some colonies. Anyways, very powerful GUI. So that comes with the Ubuntu SDK. Download it, use it, learn it. It's very difficult to use at first, but once you get into it, it's great. And thankfully, it also works with the HUD. So that's great too. So a third piece of advice is choose a language to love for each type of language out there. One thing I'm really learning right now is GNU APL, and I would really recommend looking into APL because it really forces you to think differently, because APL stands for a programming language. It's a very old language, very archaic. It was designed using a very classical structure of logic. So it uses logic symbols. If you've ever done economics or that sort of thing, at least I should say the Austrian economics, but more the mathematical economics, they all have equations and very complex symbols there, and obviously this is in mathematics too. And you'll see symbols like this. This is the exact symbols that they use in APL, and what would take you maybe 1,000 lines of code to do in Java, you could do in 10 lines of code in APL. It's not very intuitive to look at, but man, oh man, it is such a powerful language. And I'll just give the example of why it's useful to learn. In C++, you see this. C++ actually uses a tilde, and a tilde means not. Sort of like it's like a negation, right? In classical symbolic deductive logic, it also means not. It's also a negation, right? So if you learn APL, you understand that, oh, C++, or actually I should say C was influenced by someone who was well-versed in logic. That's why they use tilde to mean not, and that sort of things. And, ampersand, that stands for and this stands for therefore. And actually, I would say that APL is actually probably, I've never done circuit board programming, but it's our population, but it's also probably really useful for circuit boards as well, because you learn how to do logic gates in this, and logic gates are something that are very fun to do. So, by the way, this is just something that I've been writing. I tutor economics time to time, and this is some curriculum that I've been writing for it. So, anything else? Oh yeah, for a database, this is just my own recommendation. If you want to think long term, I'd recommend learning PostgreSQL. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's just one of those funny things that nobody knows how to pronounce. But there's a bunch of different SQL languages out there. You're probably familiar with MySQL. That's probably the most famous one. MySQL is characterized by something that's very easy to set up. PostgreSQL is more of a database that has good long-term viability. When I was initially researching what I should look into, I got the indication that people ran into barriers once their databases became so large that, lack of a better way to describe this, MySQL simply just wasn't able to handle it, and they eventually switched to PostgreSQL later on. So learning PostgreSQL and using that as a base for all databases, I think, would be probably the most pragmatic approach to database creation. And then this, I guess I'll leave this as my final piece of advice. And I say this is probably the first thing that you should do. Get yourself a Launchpad or a GitHub account. I personally use Launchpad. Launchpad versus GitHub. All right, so first I should say what these do. These are SCMs. These are source control management websites or whatever. So basically, you upload your code onto these, and if your computer falls into the ocean, it will be on the cloud, it'll be on the internet. Other people can pull code from you. Something very useful to learn. So I'm using Launchpad. Launchpad is created by Canonical. I love all the Ubuntu products, or the Canonical products, so I just stick with that. It's kind of easier for me. GitHub is the other one that's really big. You can also use, what's it called, Subversion. I don't think many people are using that anymore because that's, if I recall, single branch. I've never used Subversion myself, but you can also host code there. I guess the main difference you should know between Launchpad and GitHub is that Launchpad, you have to pay to host proprietary software projects on here. On GitHub, you can do it for free. So GitHub has free hosting. Launchpad does not. Launchpad, you can host all the open source projects you want, and considering I only develop open source software, that's a-okay with me. So I'd recommend getting this set up as quickly as possible. You learn about PGP keys, SSH keys. These are basically how you're going to sign your code. And knowing how to get code uploaded and how to share code with other people is just a very useful skill to learn. And the sooner you get yourself an account here, the sooner you can really start programming and start making a name for yourself. So I'd highly recommend to do that. So so this has been my review of Ubuntu as a developer's platform. I highly recommend it. Again, I'd like to stress that the best thing about Ubuntu, that it has an advantage over all the other desktop environments out there, I said operating systems before, but I really meant desktop environments, is that it has the HUD. You can actually run programs from here. It just makes it so fantastic, and Ubuntu is such a already used platform already. I just think the absolute world of it. So again, thanks for tuning in, and good luck in your future endeavors.